Welcome back for another video. What are the top all-time FPL managers doing this week? It's a really short turnaround with the next deadline on Saturday morning, so let's get into everything you need to know. Manager highlight first, and another really good week from Jamie McDonald. He scored 76 points all out, which was a green arrow to 287th in the world after captaining Haaland. He still got his wildcard and he still got his bench boost. Did you manage to beat the average expert score, which was 64 points? Final reminder, any transfers you have right now must be spent or you lose them, because as soon as this next deadline passes, we're all going to be topped up to 5 free transfers. A couple of experts, that said, are actually in a position where there is simply nothing to improve on, so they're burning a transfer. 62% are making 1 transfer, 16% are making 2, 9% are making 3, and there's a fair few chips active as well. We've got some wildcards, free hits, and bench boosts active. So we'll have a look at a couple of wildcard drafts in a bit from the experts. In other words, what's the best setup from now on moving forwards? So what are the top experts moves this week? Well, Foden unsurprisingly number 1 this week after a 15 and a 17 pointer back to back. 4 goals in 2 games. If you manage to catch those hauls, then well played, because those are the types of hauls that just send you up the ranks in the mini leagues rapidly, and then everyone else starts to buy that player and the gains aren't so much. Are we starting to see 23-24 Foden when he came away with player of the season? If you recall, he finished on 19 goals, 8 assists that season. I mean, he's not going to finish on that tally from here, but I mean, who actually cares? FPL is about catching the right players at the right time. Cielo is the second top transfer in, 17% buying the Newcastle defender, ahead of Burnley home and a great longer term run of games all the way till the end of January. The Newcastle defence has really impressed in terms of goals conceded, expected goals conceded, and there's loads of options as well. Like, Hall is the biggest upside option, but he's just back from injury, and will he start 3 games in a week and maybe get the Champions League off, or will it be the other way around? Maybe gets Gameweek 15 off, starts in the Champions League. Livramento is nailed and right back. Trippier and Kraft are out injured as well, who are the only other options that can play there really. And then there's Byrne, who's of course like Hal's favourite player and the real leader in the team. But yeah, Cielo is the expert's favourite. 11% are buying Minte, same for Bruno. Both of them sitting on fixtures next week that look really good. West Ham home for Brighton and it's Wolves away for Bruno. After some doubts on Bruno's fitness, he made the squad to face West Ham after all. 9% are buying Thiago, 8% Anderson, that's Fulham's Anderson. Brighton's defence is extremely cheap to buy into, so 8 and 6 experts are buying Verbruggen and Van Heck this week. So with Foden by far the most bought, in terms of the most sold, it's Semenyo and then it's Enzo. 34% selling Semenyo, 11% Enzo. And they face one another of course, and it could be an opportunity to drop Semenyo. The annoying thing with him is he does have Burnley home in Gameweek 17. He does Man United before that as well, which isn't that bad, but Burnley home has repeatedly been a fixture to target. Also, Chelsea just lost 3-1 to Leeds and they were missing Caicedo massively for that game, who still are, so that's another thing with Semenyo. But yeah, it's worth noting, Burnley home's not been the only fruitful fixture. Table here from Fantasy Nutmeg. Burnley home has produced 9 double-digit returns this season. Wolves away, Leeds home and Wolves home have also produced 9 this season. And then Brighton, Fulham and Bournemouth have actually been pretty poor on the road. They've given up 8 double-digit returns from teams playing those 3 home, Brighton, Fulham, Bournemouth. A quick chip overview next, and then we'll have a look at some juicy chip teams. 4% have got their wildcard active, 3% are free hitting, and there's 1 bench boost active. The wildcard is the most used chip at this stage, only 3% are yet to use it. Free hit and triple captain 26% unused, bench boost 15%. Brad S has activated his wildcard and he's got some amazing finishes to his name. 5.3k, 2.5k, 1.8k. His wildcard team is for Verbruggen, Van Dijk, Cielo, Timber, Foden, Schade, Bruno G, Bruno Fernandes, Thiago, Haaland and Låbakk, and the bench is Dubravka, Rice, Anderson and Estev. Verbruggen and Dubravka at a nice combined 8.4 million make up the cheapest possible pairing of starting goalkeepers, and they rotate nicely for the rest of the season. I'm not usually an advocate for rotating keepers as it's easy to get wrong, so I haven't ruled out Raya as an easy set and forget, but that means spending an extra 1.5 million, which is a lot in the context of the goalkeeper spots. Expected minutes are always important, but never more than over the busy December-January period, so I've picked 5 defenders that I expect to start every game. Timber is probably the exception there, though his sub-appearance against Brentford has further increased my confidence in his minutes going forward. It's also useful to have the most expensive defender in terms of team structure, as I can move him to any defender with a single transfer. Saliba is also a consideration, but at the time of writing he's still out injured. Looking towards the front of the team, I've continued the robustness in terms of minutes with Rice, Fernandes, Guimaraes, Thiago and Haaland. I'd like to have Saka as a captain option in Gameweek 16, but I just don't feel he's worth 3 million more than Rice as it stands. City played Palace away in Gameweek 16, which isn't great on paper for Haaland captain. However, that is the start of a period of 4 games in 10 days for Palace, who already have a thin squad. This is also why I've reluctantly let go of Låbakk on the wildcard, who I've had since Gameweek 1. I actually used a free hit in Gameweek 14 and I went for Voltemada over Guimaraes. I cheered my decision upon seeing Bruno on the bench, only for him to outscore the German by 2 points in the end. That's FPL for you. Bruno G has had his rest and he's coming into my team. Foden is hard to ignore with his current form, so he's in for now. But I'm not certain he starts the next 2, so I could go elsewhere before bringing in him for Gameweek 17 home to West Ham. As I touched upon, I've prioritised players that we expect to be regular starters throughout my squad. That said, with the unique nature of 5 AFCON transfers from Gameweek 16, I've afforded myself 2 spots in the team to use for short-term punts. We've got to use at least 1 transfer in Gameweek 16 to avoid burning it, and at the time of writing, those 2 punts are Wildcard at home to West Ham and Schade away to Spurs. Schade is a bit of a paradox in that he's on 4 yellows. He's almost certainly overpriced. He's very difficult to get to for most managers, and I believe this makes him a really interesting differential over the next 3 to 5 game weeks. If he does pick up that 5th booking, then I'm happy to stomach it with the AFCON transfers. When it comes to the 5 AFCON transfers, I'd recommend a degree of calm. Rolling through the next few game weeks with a bank of at least 2 to 3 transfers will give your team good flexibility in the medium to long term and an edge over those who will trigger happy and use all 5 transfers up as soon as possible. Good luck all. FPL Mark has got his free hit active and he's chasing a 4th top 10k in a row. His team on the free hit is Donnarumma, Burn, Timber, Tarkowski and Bumo Foden. He's got both the Brunos, Welbeck, Voltemada and Haaland. I'm currently on City, Everton, Newcastle and Arsenal defence coverage. Newcastle have a high chance of a clean sheet and Burns also providing attacking threat from set pieces as well as Defcon. Tarkowski has the upside if Everton keep a clean sheet and Defcon usually does well on BPS. Timber is to cover Arsenal defence EO whilst having attacking threat from set pieces in Gabriel's absence, and Villa are looking vulnerable from them last night, and Donnarumma is the most nailed option from the City defence to start. In midfield I've gone with Man United's best 2 attackers in Bruno and Mbumo. Foden with his recent goal scoring hauls, and Bruno G who's had a rest midweek so he should start and he'll play 90 minutes and his home record is very good. The forwards are Haaland, who I will captain, needs no explanation, Voltemada up against Burnley, who is Newcastle's main source of goals, and then Welbeck, who was rested against Villa, and he's in great form against a poor West Ham defence. I'm still considering defensive coverage from Man United, and I might double up on Newcastle defence, and the main exclusions are Liverpool players due to them being poor defensively, and they're up against a Leeds team who are going to be up for it at home after a good result against Chelsea, and their attacking options are all at risk of rotation, and they've got no form or confidence. And lastly, what about if you've still got your wildcard and your bench boost? We'll quickly look at Cormac's setup because that's what his plan is, and his wildcard team is Kelleher, Dubravka, Anderson, Truffer, Chow, Van Heck, Vandenberg, Foden, Minte, Bruno Fernandes, Saka, Tavernier, Welbeck, Haaland and Jimenez. Limited team value, so I'm spread pretty thin here with a bench boost 17 planned in also. Kelleher's in for price and fixture reasons. I'm happy to keep Dubravka as emergency cover. I don't like rotating goalkeepers much anyway. I've avoided Arsenal defence the entire season so far. Unfortunately, injuries have stopped me getting in Gabriel on Gameweek 6, which was planned, and that hurt for a few weeks, but now they're picking up injuries. I'm happy to continue without them for now. If anything goes seriously wrong after the wildcard, or I think I've made a mistake somewhere, then I'll at least have the 5 free transfers to help navigate that moving forward. Cheapest spread of Defcon centre-backs that can rotate. Anderson's been one of my better performers this season. I'm not sure if it's a positive or a negative that Chow and Van Heck have just scored braces. Couldn't you have just waited a couple of weeks, fellas? Truffer is in with bench boost 17 in mind, home to Burnley, before downgrading in the future. And Chow to Senesi is also a planned move in 17 for the bench boost. Usually I wouldn't plan transfers so soon after wildcard, but with the 5 free transfers, There is scope to be a bit more cavalier. Van den Berg for similar reasons to Kelleher. Bruno's the season keeper. Saka a no-brainer, although the threat of Madueke taking minutes could be an issue moving forward. I enjoyed Foden on free hit 13, not so much in 14, so I think he has to go in on a wildcard. Minte's got good fixtures and he seems to have secure minutes. I do worry about a slight lack of goal threat, but at that value it's not an issue. And Tavernier's in for bench boost 17. I'm hoping he's on penalties now. 1 week punt on Welbeck before he becomes Thiago, and Haaland a no-brainer at the minute. And Raul is a pure fixtures play while Muniz is out also. Hopeful for good minutes and on penalties. Probably a short-term option, and I will downgrade to a Gu once the bench boost is out of the way. Happy to avoid Liverpool entirely at this present point. Thanks very much for sending in, guys, and best of luck on the chips. We'll actually skip straight over captaincy this week because it's 100% on Haaland, not a single manager going elsewhere. So that brings us to the experts team next, and the template team from the top all-time managers is Raya, Anderson, Van Dijk, Munoz, Timber, Foden, Bruno Fernandes, Minte, Saka, Mateta and Haaland captain, so 4-4-2, and the bench is Dubravka, King, Rodon and Gu. Semenyo and Enzo both leave the team for Foden and Minte. The template's definitely more open than it has been at stages every season, including this one. Like Haaland and Dubravka, the only players that are over 80% owned. Normally we've got quite a few over 90, let alone just 2 over 80. It's going to be interesting to see how things change this time next week when every manager's got 5 free transfers and sport for choice of transfers. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on content like this to help you do well. Final thoughts and tips. Here's what the experts wanted to say to you. A quick thank you as well to all the experts, by the way. They got their responses in really quickly these last couple of game weeks to keep feeding us the data that we need. Vizal says, hits are way more expensive this week when you get 5 free transfers next week. Use all free transfers, but beware of using a hit, as it only takes 1 week to pay off. Neil says, in the spirit of momentum and an eye on short term, could be long term moves, I've moved for a Newcastle defender. It's a great jump on point with Burnley home and a great jump off point from Bournemouth, who are looking woeful defensively. There's a nice fixture swing over a long period for the two of them, and that brings me up to 2 Newcastle players. Now if only I could bin off Petrovic too, I'd be at peace, but alas, I've only got 1 free transfer and nowhere obvious to go. The boring move will have to wait, and I may be rotating more regularly with Dubravka than I thought. Not this week though, as I'm betting Bruno G does the business for me again. Free hit is still in my back pocket, and every week it could still be an option. Matthew, or FPL Monitor, says, I've got 3 free transfers and I have to spend it before Gameweek 16 because of the AFCON transfers. Rather than burning the transfers, it seems to me to be the perfect opportunity to set up the bench boost, and the bench will likely be Dubravka of Newcastle away, Kanate for Leeds away, Anderson for Palace home and King for Palace home. And lastly, FPL Fish with that final reminder says, remember to use your transfers this week, use them or lose them. Thanks very much for watching, guys. See you soon for the next one.